How long does it take for that to have an effect? Is it immediate, or does it take a day or two before they'll stop eating that topwater?
I think it's immediate. They eat it differently. You know, like that one was open water, and usually open water frogfish get to come unglued on the bait. That one just kind of, but when they're that big, they kind of just do that with it too. So who knows? It's just one of those things, but I think it goes immediately.
Things definitely changing, and I gotta say, the Florida bass is the most temperamental bass to fish for in a cold front situation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. The Florida bass in Florida, they're bad in other places.
That's a good point.
But not as bad because I guess they get used to the conditions.
Yeah.
You know, that Florida bass in Alabama or that Florida bass, you know, on the Potomac River, because do they have Floridas in the Potomac?
I don't think that far north, but they might.
No, the Upper Bay they said had Floridas in it, Florida strains.
Really?
That's what I had heard.
Well,
so,
that's news to me.
but
I think they might just think they're Florida strains because they get so damn big.
Yes, they do get big. But I mean, yeah, it's just one of those deals where, you know, Florida bass act a little bit different in other places. They're not as temperamental, but in Florida, with the weather conditions the way that they are, you know, usually it's pretty sunny and warm with the occasional cold front.
I remember practicing on places like Okeechobee over the years, and you get these wonderful warming trends which push all the bass up shallow, and you're catching them on everything, you know, frogs, flukes, flipping, you know, spinner baits, everything's working. And then a cold front comes through, and it's not like they goes from 30 bites a day to
10.
15 or 10. It just goes to zero.
Yeah.
I mean, I never seen anything like it, you know, first time I experienced it. But you learn real quick, you know, in a temperamental situation like this, you gotta respond quickly. And you know, a lot of times that's one of the great question we had earlier was, you know, how do you respond to that? And flipping the thickest, densest stuff is a great way to try to get through the cold front scenario. Another great way to do it is the reaction baits, meaning a jerk bait, lipless crankbait. They're great tools to draw strikes when that condition is happening to you.
That's where he was. And obviously he didn't come back.
And you may not have heard it earlier, but every cast that we make up here in the shallows there's fry everywhere. So there's been a spawn by bass, maybe tilapia, I don't know, multi-species have done something here, because the entire banks of this canal, every cast of the fry are just scooting out of the way. If you guys are just tuning in, we've had some audio difficulties, but we're back live. You know, I know all you guys can hear me now, so I want to invite all you guys watching us on Facebook and YouTube, go over to bassu.tv and subscribe. If we use your question from the IM board from one of our subscribers, we're giving away some great stuff, courtesy of Ish Monroe and River to Sea and Missile Baits. We appreciate that very
And Bass
much,
University,
and
Pete Glusick.
And Bass University. We may throw a Bass University hat.
What about the Bass University boat and truck?
You want to give that away today?
We'll give away the Bass University boat and truck.
We'll consider it. We'll consider it. I need it for the rest of the week, though. Got to let me hold on to it. We got a pair of guys up there.
Oh,
Hey,
cute
buddy.
little guys.
I guess they're miniature Dobermans. Is that what they are?
I have no idea what those are.
They're pretty cool. That one looks Doberman.
We'll give away a gift pack to somebody who can tell us what those are.
What species are those dogs? There's two different kinds. Maybe not. Maybe they're the same. Ish, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I love to fish docks. In Florida, I don't catch many fish off of docks. Is that just me, or do the Florida fish not use them as well? Have you noticed that? Or
I've noticed that they use them in situations where there's very little grass, But on the lakes that have lots of grass in it, I don't think that they use the docks as much as they would on lakes that, you know, that don't have it.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Just because there's so much grass. I mean, the grass is perfect for every scenario for a bass. He lives in it, he breathes in it, it creates oxygen, and you know, it hides him from the gators and everything else.
So it's just a preference, right?
I just think it's a preference.
If the grass is present, he's going to be in the grass.
Yep.
I can see all the fry just moving along with every one of my pitches here.
So here's a question for the dean. How many different states and countries do we have members of the Bass University TV?
That's a great question. Last count, we have subscribers from 13 different states.
Awesome.
13 different states, 13 different countries.
13 different countries.
I'm sorry, 13 different countries.
So,
And we have subscribers from people that live in countries that don't have bass.
are they learning about fishing, or what's the...
I suspect they probably vacation, you know,
yes.
around bass fishing, and they want to expand their knowledge so that when they show up on a Florida trip or trip to California or Texas, they're well prepared.
I mean, China's gotten really big on bass fishing. Japan has always been.
Yeah.
You know, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Spain, Italy, Portugal.
Also, it's got Canada, of course.
Canada, of course.
Mexico.
They got smallmouth bass in Canada.
Yes.
And Dave Mercer. That's who they have.
He's not. He doesn't have a smallmouth.
He doesn't have a smallmouth. No, he does not. Oh, and did you see that?
saw
you
said-
saw that? Oh my goodness.
I saw you go on point.
That was Farmer in the Dell, but once again, I think this front's got him a little shook. But that's 0 for Ish and 2 for the bass.
Swing and a miss.
Swing and a miss. I mean, he hit it, then he hit it again, and I lifted and I thought he was pulling. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
It's
wrong
a pickerel.
species. Well, he's a species.
It's a species.
I caught one of these on the Harris chain not the other day. I was surprised to catch.
I've never caught a pickerel.
That's
They're
a,
called chain
that's
pickerel
a
down
chain
here.
pickerel. Gets his name from the cool patterns, the cool chain pattern on the size.
Answered the dog question.
Oh yeah,
He
Do-
said they were Chihuahua pins.
Chihuahua pins.
Nice.
Well done, DR Custom Lures.
Well, we will send him.
IDing those dogs. We're going to send you something cool.
Yeah.
Send you a neat little gift. But that was a cool strike, man. It's the classic strike when you're flipping. I have 1.25 ounces.
River to Sea, tungsten weight.
I do. I have 1.25 ounces River to Sea on here, courtesy of Ish Monroe.
What's the normal retreat for a frog?
Gosh, that is, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's walk the frog, sometimes it's hop the frog. There is no what I would call normal retrieve, because if you're fishing it over mat, you're just kind of skipping it across the mat as a frog would be skipping. One thing I try to pay attention to is what's going on around me. If there's a lot of frogs and they're skipping across the grass pretty fast and I'm working mine pretty fast. Another thing I pay attention to is you'll see it where a frog will be going across a mat and he'll stop And that tells you that there's something there. And so usually you want to work your frog in that area multiple times because usually there's a bass there.
So, Mr. Luke Garcia, will the cold front affect the big bags, or will there still be a huge bag even with the cold front?
Luke Garcia wants to know, will there still be big bags caught in the Bassmaster Open this week like they had the last couple times they've been here, or will that significantly affect the big fish that have been caught? I can tell you my opinion, and I'll let Ish weigh in on it, but cold fronts, and this unstable weather typically will affect the weight. So I would expect the weights to be low now, or lower, I should say that.
Yes.
Harris Chain's full of big fish, and there's going to be guys that are going to be able to trigger those bites. They're going to figure it out. So you're still, I believe, going to see some 20-pound bags. I just don't think you'll see as many of them as you've seen in previous tournaments.
I would have to 100% agree with that. Yeah, you're going to still see some big bags, but you're not going to see the same amount of big bags as that if the water was normal. So
Bert would like to know, does this do anything to the fat frog, or does he throw them right out of the pack?
well, for me is
Question is,
No, sorry.
We'll try to repeat the question. I know Don's asking him to us, and he's not Mike, but the question is, do you do any modifications to your frog?
well, the legs out of the package to me are a bit long. So I trim the legs a little bit, but that's for me personally. Some guys like longer legs, so I'm giving you guys the option. I can't make them short to where I would fish them and then have, try to make them longer if you don't like them short. So, but I trim usually about an inch to an inch and a half off my legs. And it's not to make it walk any better or anything, it's just my personal preference on what I do. But other than that, nothing. I designed it with the best hooks in it and the great hookup ratio. I talk about it all the time when it comes to frog fishing. If you are 75% with a frog, you've had a good day. You're 80% on a frog, you've had a great to fantastic day. In my whole entire career of frog fishing, I've probably had one 100% day on a frog, and I end up winning the tournament by 13 pounds.
Huh.
What color do you use for wind?
Repeat the question.
The question is what colors do I use when and where? Majority of the time, I like a light bait in clear water, middle of the day, sunny, bright conditions. In first thing in the morning, dark water conditions, muddy water conditions, I usually like a black, first thing in the morning, late in the afternoon. And then I'll mix in a bluegill pattern when the fish are on a bluegill.
What's your favorite way to flip lily pads with?
My favorite weight to flip lily pads with is either a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce, depending on how thick the pads are. If the pads are really thick, I like a 3/4 ounce. If they're not so thick, I like a 1/2 ounce. The lighter the weight you get, the better hookup ratio that you're gonna get out of it, which hookups are very important, but you also gotta have a bait that's gonna slide down and through those pads to get into the bass and not hanging up on the pads.
Here's a question from Bass Anglers Anonymous. Is there a type of weight that bass prefer over others?
Great question from Bass Anglers Anonymous. Is there a type of grass that bass prefer over others? And in lakes like Florida, it's amazing because you got 17,000 different types of grass here. So, you know, one of the things that you try to do as a tournament angler or as fishermen is try to identify which grasses that the fish are using, and try to identify why. But we got another couple of dogs joining the Bass U Live crew today.
A little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger this time, but I tell you, you know, in certain parts of the country, milfoil grass is one of the dominant grasses. A lot of the places that I fish have eelgrass, milfoil, some hydrilla, and the milfoil is often the preferred habitat for the bass. Other times, you know, it's hydrilla that is a dominant tool, or a dominant, you know, a dominant grass. Other times it's eelgrass that can be real dominant depending on the fishery, but a lot of times I find out if there's milfoil or hydrilla in a body of water, those are going to be the grass that the winning patterns or the bass are going to prefer.
Marty would like to know, do you find using the hydrowave while foaming or fishing has any effect?
You want to tackle a hydrowave, Ish?
I don't have my hydrowave on my boat installed yet. It's actually sitting at home. I left it, not thinking. But I do use the hydrowave when the fish are on a shad spawn in the grass and flipping. It seems to activate them. The hydrowave is a great way in triggering fish when fish aren't very active. It does something to their mode. So yes, the hydrowave is very important, you know, in most scenarios.
Justin Owen would like to know, do you throw a trailer hook on your frogs in open water?
Question is Justin, do I throw a trailer hook on my frogs in open water? I never throw trailer hooks on my frogs. Reason is it's already got 2 hooks on it, and trying to penetrate 2 hooks is really, really hard already, and then you add a 3rd hook, it makes it even harder. Yeah, we've got some really great equipment and stuff nowadays, and stronger rods and braided line, but I never throw a trailer hook. And just in case you get in a scenario where you want to fish it over some slop, that trailer hook will grab that stuff.
Are you a bass fisherman, little buddy? Have you ever caught a bass? He's in training. There's a few right here. We're getting some advice. We're allowed to take information on Bass University Live.
I like that.
Dean Dunkirk. Ish, is there a higher bite percentage by casting on the shore and twitching the frog into the water versus directly into shallow water?
The question is do I get a higher bite percentage from throwing my frog actually on shore and dragging it off? I will tell you that application plays to when fish are spooky or they're sitting really, really tight and close to the bank. And when they're in that scenario, yes, you want to throw that frog on the shore and drag it in, and you'll get some really explosive strikes right on the bank. If you see them swirling right there at the bank like we've all seen and pushing shad and pushing bluegill up there, you definitely want to do that then too.
What kind of gear are you throwing your frog with? What's your setup?
Well, my setup is 7-3-1 Daiwa Zillion SV reel, which is my money reel, 65-pound Maxima braided line. I really like Maxima. And the Ish Monroe 7.4 frog rod. Now I also created a 7.9 frog rod for the big, super thick, heavy mats that places like Gunnersville or the Potomac or even the Upper Bay gets out there on the flats. I am Mr. Farmer in the Dell today.
You guys talk a little bit about the water temperature and moon phases and how it affects fish spawning?
Well, water temperature is huge. Oh, question is about water temperature and moon phases when the fish are spawning. Well, the water temp is hugely important because the fish needs the water to get warm to have the eggs process. The moon
Incubate.
phase,
Incubate.
incubate. Yes, I process. Yeah. The moon phase is relative to, you know, certain places. I think in clear water conditions, the moon phase plays a huge factor. But I think if the water temperature plays more of a factor, because you could have the right moon and the water being too cold, and them fish aren't gonna fire.
That's interesting. The clear water observation. And just to add to that a little bit, where I come from, we have a very short spawn. We get our spawn, the majority of it takes place in a month. And I think the thing that takes precedent as you get a little bit further north is the length of day. And you know, the fish, you know, almost independent of water temperature, will start to move into spawning positions as the days start to get longer, because they, you know, over millions of years of this, they realize that they're going to get their spawn in, and they do it, in pretty big waves that happen. So your length of day is definitely a key factor too. But one of the other things that you and I have been talking about this a little bit is the Dean Rojas scenario of the spawn. And down here in Florida, it seems like those cold fronts that come right before a warming trend triggers those fish to spawn in heavy numbers, wouldn't you say? Or
Yes.
that's what we saw when Dean Rojas set the record for the 5 biggest bass in
It was
bass
cold in Florida for a month. And when I say cold, it's not freezing cold, but we're talking, you know, the highs being in the low 50s. And for Florida, that's cold. And then all of a sudden, we had lows were in the 50s and the highs were in the 80s. And so that brought every fish that was in the lake up to spawn.
It was the most amazing event, and it really drove home a big point, especially in these lakes that have multiple months of spawning, is how important those cold fronts are prior to a warming trend. Because we had 85 degrees for like 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yep.
Water temperatures got up into the 70s. Every big fish in the whole lake just crashed the banks and started making beds. Dean caught a 45-pound 5 bass limit. Lots of 30-pound stringers were weighed in, and a few other 40s. So it was one of the most amazing sights, and it happened down here in Florida on Lake Toho.
So Jason Foster would like to know, while practicing for a tournament on a grass lake, do you flip fish or use search baits to locate fish holding the area?
I'll let you grab that one, Dean.
The question is, who's that from?
Jason Foster.
Jason Foster. When practicing during a cold front situation?
No, for a
While
tournament.
practicing for a tournament on a grass
On a grass lake. Practicing for a tournament on a grass lake, do
flip pitch or use search bait?
you flip pitch or do you use search baits? And the answer to that question is yes.
Exactly. That's why I let the Dean handle that. Yes. All of the above.
All of the above. And, you know, and that's what makes Florida fishing such a challenge, because it takes a long time to go through all those different types of presentations. The grass beds start on the bank and they go up to a quarter mile, or some places a half a mile off the bank. And you have to fish those different depth zones. And because at the different depth zones, there's different types of grasses. And it takes a long time to go through reaction tools and flipping baits and try to establish a pattern. Something that I do, and I know a lot of guys do, which is a way that helps me move faster, is I like to use those reaction tools whenever I can get them to bite them. If I can find a lake where the fish will bite, a lipless bait, a jerk bait, top water, anything like that, a swim bait, I'd prefer, you know, that's the preferred scenario, because I can cover water so much faster. I can get a few bites with it, and then I can slow down and really dissect the area with flipping tools. But there are times, like you know, we're experiencing a little bit this week, where it's not that easy to get them to bite those reaction baits, and it's almost like the flipping tools are the ones that you have to use for the search mode. But it takes a lot longer to find them when you have to flip, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is. they are in a weird mode. I just had another one hit it and didn't get it. For me though, is I look at the scenario, you know, reaction baits catch fish, and it catches a lot of fish. But if I'm looking for big fish in grass situations, I'm using that flipping stick pretty much the majority of the time, because you can't rip a rattle trap, or you can't throw a spinner bait or a jerk bait through that stuff right there. And sometimes I feel like that's where those big bass live, is they live in places that people don't present baits to them, and that's where the flipping technique comes in. You know, flipping is known for catching, you know, big fish, but it does take a long time to find those fish, and you have to be committed to that flipping stick. You know, when I'm fishing tournaments on grass lakes and I'm fishing to win the tournament, I'm flipping.
So
Great.
Note Boom would like to know when there's
Rapid fire questions coming from Don Slimmer. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yep.
When there's no visible grass, what do you key in on when frog fishing?
The question is when there's no visible grass, what do I key in on frog fishing? Any type of structure that's in the water. The frog does not just work in places that has grass. I catch them on lakes that have a lot of brush. I catch them on lakes that have docks. I catch them, you know, on lakes with reeds. You name it, the frog can catch them, you know, in almost any scenario.
Back up to the frog.
Well, it's just kind of perfect duckweed, middle of the deal. I wish the sun was out a little bit more, because what I feel like, even in these cold front situations like this, on the duckweed, they get right up underneath it, because that duckweed has that warmth, but it also still has the shade.
When you found that little clump of grass, I thought that was a bat coming up rolling on that frog just
Like,
then.
oh, get it, get it.
What made you fall in love with that? I know a lot of guys on the West Coast love frog fishing. Like I think of Rumbanis, you, Rojas. You guys are just frog phenoms.
You gotta think about it. The strikes that come from it, if you don't have good heart, it'll definitely, you know, change you. And the fish that I've caught on this bait, you know, I've won a lot of money frog fishing. I can tell you that of my 5 BASS wins, a frog played the key in 3 of the 5. And that's huge.
No, yeah, it is huge.
You know, I've won a lot of money because of this bait. It's gotten me that one extra bite. The frog deal is you're not going to go out there and catch 20, 25, or 30 fish like you normally would on other baits. But you're going to catch 6 or 7 that are going to be bigger on average. It just, I mean, don't get me wrong, I catch little fish on the frog, but day in and day out, it catches that better average fish.
Did you guys get good at it because there's a lake out there or anything that like?
Well, we have multiple lakes. I mean, the Clear Lake, the Delta, you know, those are frog heaven places. You know, it's just lots of grass, lots of places that you can't really put other baits, and the frog just kind of gets in there.
I'm amazed every time this jig hits the bottom that I'm not getting a biter.
I'm amazed that they don't blow up on this frog. And
What kind of water temperature are we dealing with?
we are dealing with 71.2.
71.2.
And technically for Florida,
That's a lot hotter than the Harris Chain Lake. Did you find that temperature?
I found 69 was about the warmest.
Okay. Man,
But once again, 71 for Florida is still like 50s into most places.
right.
You know,
and it's water. It's falling water temperature. Yeah. Your phone dying? We're out of power on Mr. Slim's phone.
You got
I got to finish this cast, Don. You're gonna have to give me a second.
There's a
I'll
plug.
switch.
There's a plug-in.
Ugh.
So here's the one for Ish then from James Note Boom. So repeat his name too, Ish.
Okay.
Do you give them time to suck in the frog before setting the hook?
Great
The
question.
Great question from James Noteboom.
Yep.
The question is do I wait for the fish
I want to hear
sucking
this
in the
answer.
frog on the hook set? For me, James, I like contrasting colors. You know, we're fishing a green mat up here. I like to throw a white one, a black one, something that, you know, the fish really, you know, it doesn't really matter because they can't really see it. But for me, I can visually see it. And my initial bite is if I don't see color, I'm setting the hook because that means the fish has it.
Good answer.
We're pushing back.
We are stuck up in the canal.
Four-wheel drive, baby. Like Scott Martin says, four-wheel drive.
Here's a question from Scene Dunkirk.
Seen Dunkirk.
He is throwing them in there. He's trying to get in on them gift packs, isn't he?
What situations would you use a looping cast to cause more of a commotion when the frog initially plops down onto the surface?
The question is, the cast that I make that makes the frog plop on the surface versus, you know, making it to where it kind of subtly. And that, once again, all depends on the fish's reaction. A lot of times when I'm fishing mats, I like that plopping cast because it allows that bait to make an indentation in the mat and gives that fish time to find it. You know, and so when he can find that bait in that mat, he's definitely going to be looking for it and chasing it down. The loop cast like that, where it splashes down, fish are really active, then you do that. But then there's times where fish are inactive. And a frog's one of the only baits that you can fish. So you have to make subtle casts.
Here's a good one from Ranger Mike.
Ranger Mike.
Ranger Mike.
Talk to us.
Question for both of you. I noticed some guys use unpainted shiny tungsten in Florida to get more bites. Is that something you two do?
Question is about painted versus unpainted tungsten weights in your flipping. What's your answer?
I like black weights. I'm not about the shiny weights. Some guys are, and they say that they get more bites. I don't seem to
Hi guys.
think that it really matters the weight. I think more so matters the presentation and the places that you put it. But some of the best flippers I know like unpainted weights, and that's just them. You know, each person is different, each bass is different, and you've got to give the bass what they want.
I think that sunshine is key too with, you know, I know, you know, I'm always looking for that flash when it comes to using the sun, and that unpainted weight will give you that flash. At least it, you know, I guess that's the theory behind it. But you know, be honest with you, I'm more like Ish. I prefer black. I think it's a more natural color. I think it looks more like what's out there in the environment. And unless the partner that I'm fishing with starts catching more than me with an unpainted weight, I'm painting my weights.
I'm with you on that one.
How you doing today?
Once again, fishing's all experiment. There are some techniques that work day in and day out, but then there's other times where there's no rhyme or reason to it because we're dealing with a living creature in its environment, not ours. Because I would have swore I would have came through these two canals and had 10 blow-ups on a frog instead of one blow-up and 2 flipping bites where they didn't even get it.
The Bass University live show is the only place that I can cast over Ish's line and get away with it.
Or, yeah, you're probably right.
Remember the days when we used to draw pro on pro?
Oh my goodness.
There used to be tournaments called invitationals. They call them opens now. And we would draw pro on pro, and we would have to flip a coin to see whose boat we would use and to see whose water we would go to first.
Yeah. And you might not have got the opportunity to get to your water in the morning when you wanted to, or, you know, or even having your boat with having that extra lure that you might need.
So Grant Adams would like to know, is there a magic water temp here in Florida?
Magic.
Grant
The question is, Grant Adams?
Yep.
Grant Adams asked us about the magic water temperature for Florida. Oh, I don't know if there's one particular magical water temperature, but I like when the water temperature is in the mid to the high 70s. I feel like at that point in time, the bass are happy. They're in their happy place, and if a bass is in his happy place, he's probably going to be feeding.
And I just to add to that, I think it's like here, like everywhere, if the water temperature is falling, it almost doesn't matter what the temperature is.
Right.
If it's falling, I mean, that's a negative condition. You're gonna struggle a little bit, especially with these Floridas.
Unless it's falling from 90 degrees to
Right.
80 degrees.
Right. Right. It seems like this time of year, the springtime, is when it matters the most, and those warming water temperatures is just like it's a magic thing. You know, the bite can oftentimes really accelerate. Oh, hey now,
There we go.
get in the boat with us.
Get in the boat. That was,
Nice.
told you, it's going to happen.
Nice.
It's going to happen.
Flipping, getting
Flipping.
through the cold front scenarios.
So here I'm going to power pull down for a second. I'm going to talk to you about some equipment here and kind of a prime example on the reason why things happen the way that they do. So as you can see, that fish is hooked in the roof of the mouth like he's supposed to. And that's all due to the type of knot that you tie when you're flipping. Let that one go. So I created a hook called by River to Sea. It's called a New Jack flipping hook. And what it has is it has a double eye on it, and it's a straight shank hook. Well, that double eye is for guys who don't know how to tie a snell knot like I have tied here, where you can take the line through the front of the eye and tie to this eye and create what we call the cavitation. So when I go to set that hook, as you can see, that hook is always swinging upwards. And when it's swinging upwards, it's going to hook them in the roof of the head, through the eye, where you're actually going to be able to land that fish. So tying the right knot to your hook, if you've got a straight shank hook, you want to learn to tie a snell, or you go out and buy the New Jack flipping hook by River to Sea, and you're going to get that same cavitation and land a lot more fish when you're out there punching that mat.
Before you go away from that, let's look at the other stuff. You've got a 1.5 ounce weight there.
This is actually a 1 ounce.
1 ounce
because
weight.
we're not in the super thick mats. 1 ounce weight. It's a Paycheck Baits bobber stop.
Okay.
And then this is a Missile Baits Crawfather. As you can see, he ate the leg off of it and stuff. And it's
That's a very small profile bait.
yeah,
The
just very
Crawfather.
small. It goes through real easy. And some of these
Okay. mats
mats here, when you're fishing, it just slides that bait right on through, and
Gotcha.
the fish just eat it.
Now, guys talk about the hook set, and they lose fish a lot of times fishing in mats because of the hook set. I watched you execute that. Can you walk through how to do that, how to get those fish pinned and up and out of the cover?
Well, huge part, 7:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. High speed reel, but not too high speed to where you can't turn the handle. You start getting an 8-to-1, 9-to-1 gear ratio reel, you can't turn because of the torque on it.
Right.
But a 6:3-to-1 is almost too slow where you can't keep up with that fish coming at me. And that 7-3 to 1, we're talking over 36 inches of line, which is 3 feet of line in one turn of the handle on that reel. So him coming at you, you turn one handle, you've got 3 feet of that line back, and you're most likely going to stay pegged in on that fish.
Okay. Now, do you snap it, drop slack in the line, snap, or do you wait till he moves off before you set? How are you
It's
handling
a hard pressure set. What you're doing is when
Hard
he
pressure
grabs
set.
that bait, I'm gonna drop that there. He grabs that bait. If you snap set, this weight's gonna hit the back of his mouth and blow his mouth open. But if you do a hard pressure set, when you're pulling, he's grabbing down and tighter, and you're pulling even more harder, and it's gonna slip that weight through his mouth and peg that hook as it cavitates upwards in the roof of his head,
Right, just like you did,
just like I did.
right?
I'm getting new bait.
Oh, look at this. We got shiner action right in front of us, Jeff. Hey, check this out. We got a nice
That's a nice
bass.
one.
We got a nice bass.
Is that a bass?
Or is that a mudfish? No, that's a Grinnell.
Oh, muddy.
Yeah.
Yay! Quick release.
That's a dinosaur, guys. That's a dinosaur. What do you got?
So Eric Lytle
Eric Lytle.
would like to know, when do you use the jig over a D-bomb or beaver style bait?
Man, that's a great question. When do you use a jig over a D-bomb or a creature style plastic bait? You want to carry us back up through here?
Yeah, I'll take us back up through here.
All right.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah,
you want
go
to
ahead.
answer that?
Go ahead.
So, for me, the D-Bob, our creature style bait is great for punching and sliding through the thicker, heavier cover. The jig for me is when I'm fishing reed heads or arrowheads at a point, and I can put that jig in there. That's when I seem to really like the jig a little bit more. I personally prefer flipping that jig because I believe that the hook set's different and you can actually lay down and crack those fish hard and it doesn't blow their mouth open the same as it would if you're punching. So I would love to fish the jig and some of this thick stuff, but it doesn't seem to go through the same.
The jig definitely has a higher strike to catch ratio.
Yes.
How you doing, guys?
Good.
That looked like a giant bass when you guys first had them on there. You guys are live on Bass University TV catching that fish. You see a lot of those critters up here in the shallows. The mudfish, the chain pickerel,
Yep.
all kinds of things live up in here. Look at all. I don't even know where to throw. There's so much.
Just so much good stuff.
I'm gonna throw in the dead reeds. It's a great question about live vegetation versus dead vegetation. There's a lot of spraying that goes on in these grass lakes. Do you run from the spray? Are you not bothered by the dead vegetation, or what's your MO when it comes to sprayed vegetation?
You know, Pete, I'm a student of the game just like you are, and except for you're the dean. And I am still trying to say that I don't run from the vegetation as much in cold conditions. So my thought process is, if it is sprayed, then yes, I run from it. But if it's died due to cold water conditions, I don't run from it.
Interesting.
And it seems to have played a huge factor in my catch ratio, because it seems like in colder conditions, that bait, or I'm sorry, the fish will be a little bit active because the water temperature is about a half a degree warmer. And in Florida, a half a degree is
It's half a degree warmer in the live vegetation?
in the dead vegetation,
Dead vegetation.
because it seems to absorb the heat.
That's an interesting observation.
And I learned this from watching bass fishing shows and Bass University.
So Chris H.
Chris H.
would like to know, how does a forage fish spawn change sight fishing for largemouth?
A how does forage fish
I
spawn?
think he's saying a shad spawn. Shad spawn. Change sight fishing.
Spawn or something like that. That would change like
The question is how does a forage fish spawn change sight fishing for largemouth? Well, Chris, the deal is, for me, is when they go on a shad spawn, you catch them first thing in the morning on that shad spawn. It will actually, I believe, pull fish off of beds or change the fish's mode and put them in an active feeding position versus a guarding position. And it actually makes them easier to catch when there is a shad spawn going on a lot of lakes. And so when that happens, yeah, you go chase that shad spawn first thing in the morning, but then once that shad spawn dies, then yes, you better be back searching for those fish on beds.
Boy, that's a pretty advanced question.
It was a really good question.
It is. And the shad spawn, you know, for those of you that don't know, in Florida lakes in particular, it often takes place in open holes, open water, outside the hydrilla edges. You know, that's where we see a lot of the shad spawning going on here. At different lakes, it takes place at different places. In reservoirs, you can see riprap, docks. They can, you know, concentrate a shad spawn. So depending on where you live in the country, it's going to look a lot different. But down here in Florida, it's that open water bite. And I know even as of recent times, the FLW tournament was won fishing the shad spawn out in the open water on this particular lake, or the Harris chain of lakes, just a few years ago. I see a big flipping bass in our future. Yes.
Actually, right now, I'm thinking wind is your friend and the old faithful spinnerbait or chatterbait. Wind is your friend, but I think I see what you see coming up there with that perfect little hyacinth mat on a point.
A lot of people don't like fishing in the wind because it's challenging, but like I said, wind is your friend. The only time I find that wind's not your friend is when it's muddying up the water, and especially down here.
Yes.
If you have a very exposed bank that's, you know, if we have a north wind and you're fishing the south shore, the wind's hammering in on there with wave action. The bottom's so soft here, it silts up the water, makes it off-colored, and the fishing can go south real quick. But in this, we're protected, so the wind actually offers us a little cover. The water's staying gin clear, so we're not seeing any impact from the wind from that perspective. So I think wind is your friend in this situation. It's also your friend, you know, when it's blowing on rocky points, you know, any place that it's pushing
hard cover,
it's pushing bait, and the predators are going to take advantage of it.
I'm not a
Mike O. He would like to
Mike
know,
O.
Mike
when
O.
should the tail of the frog be trimmed, and what is the benefit of trimming its tail?
That sounds like an ish question.
Well, Mike O, the question is about trimming the frog and when should you and when you not. I trim, like I said, on my frog, I always trim the legs a little bit because they're too long. I did that because people said to me that they wanted longer legs. It's all personal preference. Let the fish dictate to you. If you're getting a lot of bites that you're missing, then you definitely want to trim those legs because that means the legs are too long. Oh my
Feel
God,
that?
I'm drooling right now. What is
Those
that?
boys had a fish over there, but it's a big piece of grass. I feel that wind pushing, and I feel that this is the front, guys. This is that north wind that's coming down on us, and it's real nice out. You're wearing shorts. We've got a light sweatshirt on.
Yep.
I got a feeling tomorrow morning we're going to be dressed a little differently.
Pants, socks, shoes, flip-flops are gone. The flip-floppies
They're
are
gone.
gone.
They're gone. It's going to be all about heavy gear. I don't know if we need gloves or not, but it's
No, I don't think we're gonna need gloves, but it's gonna be. Gosh, I dream of spots like this.
You know, this is the third time Bass University TV has been live in Florida, and 100% of the time it has been during a cold front.
You picked the perfect times to come. Bass University shows you how real it is.
Hey, we do. We show you it's real.
We don't wait till those perfect times to where they're biting, eating everything, chewing the paint off spinnerbait blades.
But I promise you, we are going to fish some of those conditions this year. We're going to find some good conditions. But most fishermen are like us, you know, they get to go fishing when they get to go fishing. They don't get to pick and choose the day or the time. They're
Yep,
like,
they're off work, they're going fishing.
they're off work. Wife gives me the pass, I'm going fishing. And that's us.
Or the husband gives the wife the pass to go fishing.
There you go.
So question from JB.
JB's got a question.
Preferred weight for punching.
What is your preferred weight for punching? I'll attack that real quick, and I'll let the master talk about it. But I like to use, typically when I'm punching, the lightest weight that I can get away with and still be able to get penetration through the vegetation. So I can tell you this, in tomorrow's derby, I'm going to have a ½ ounce, a 1 ounce, an ounce and a quarter, and an ounce and a half. And I'm going to have them all rigged up and ready to go depending on what I face. How do you handle weight selection? Ish?
The answer to that is exactly what the dean said, and that's why he's the dean.
But you'll find situations that look intimidating, like this is duckweed, and you know, you'll throw in there, and I got instant penetration. All this vegetation that we're fishing right now is I've got an ounce and a quarter on here, which is a good all-around weight, but it's a little heavy. I could get away with a 1 ounce weight, and that's what I would try to do. But if you're pitching in habitat and you have to make more than 2 or 3 pitches to find a way to get it down, you want to start upscaling, and you get up to the ounce and a half. Some guys go to 2 ounces, you know, and
50% hookup ratio with the 2 ounce weight.
it's, yeah, the bigger the weight, the more you decrease your hookup percentage. But a 2 ounce weight can get you through a little bit more dense vegetation.
You gotta get the bite before you can hook them up.
That's right. If I had a spinnerbait tied on, I'd throw it right down in that pocket. I just so happen to have a spinnerbait tied on.
So Tyler Helm would like to know how would you fish the spawn in a highland reservoir versus here in Florida?
Tyler? Is that Tyler?
Tyler Helm. Yep.
Tyler Helm wants to know, how would you fish the spawn in a highland reservoir versus here in Florida?
Well, in Florida, the bass will bed super duper shallow. Highland Reservoir, bass will actually bed down in 8, 10, 12 feet of water, and you have to look at them differently. There's different phases of a spawn in a Highland Reservoir versus here in Florida. Usually when the spawn goes on, they're pretty much shallow, hard bottom in Florida. Highland Reservoirs, they're looking, you know, you've got fish that spawn on points, you got fish that spawn in the back of pockets, you've got fish that spawn in a lot of different places.
Yeah, and they're much deeper, that's true. In some highland reservoirs, a lot of them have smallmouth, and smallmouth notoriously will spawn out on main lake shorelines, out on points like you suggested.
You got your spinnerbait, I'm grabbing my chatterbait.
Get that chatter daddy. But the let's talk a little bit about a little bit of sight fishing techniques. One of the things that that you want to deal with, especially when you're in a highland, any situation, but highland in particular, because you've got to get extra depth penetration. Go ahead, Ish, you can take it. The you want to do things like you want to have the sun on your back. That's a huge key. You want to have an excellent pair of polarized sunglasses. A lighter lens can get you some additional depth, like an amber lens or a brown lens will get you extra depth through the water. One thing that I really like to do, and a lot of our performance wear comes with hoods, and put your hood up. You want to block all light.
As much as the sun, yeah, all the light you can. You want to block it out.
Get it blocked out, and it's going to give you just a little bit of extra depth perception. You know, pay attention to the wind. Just a little bit of wind on the water is going to cut your visibility down quite a bit. So, you know, you want to use that, you know, look in protected banks, you know, high banks. They'll, you know, you can get just a little bit deeper in the water in those situations.
Why you always fish directly into the sun?
Because Jeff asked me to.
Our cameraman's frustrated where we're fishing. He's got the camera lens right into the sun. Sorry, folks at home. We'll be making a turnaround here pretty soon. It looks like we're kind of at a bay here. What's this? Oh God Almighty!
Big one. Is that a bass?
I don't
That's
know,
a
but
bass.
he
It's a
slammed
giant.
it.
It's a giant, folks. The
Phew.
biggest bass on Bass University yet.
Oh,
Oh
it's a
my God!
bass!
Oh my goodness!
He slammed that thing. About jerked this right out of my hand. He's coming right at the boat. He's coming right at the boat. This is helping me.
Yeah! Look at that,
How about that?
folks
Woo!
at home. Okay. I'm actually going to turn
God,
the boat.
fat. So we can get some light on this
Get
fish.
some light on this thing. Giant bass.
Whew! Man, I know you guys saw that strike. You can look how beautiful that fish is. That's a nice Florida. The wind's blowing right in on that grass bank, and I made 2 cranks at a reel handle and just stopped to eat it so hard I thought it was another mudfish.
I just saw your rod tripled over. Not doubled over, but tripled over.
Thank you. Thanks for helping me
Yeah,
with that
no
one. Ish.
problem.
That was awesome. I believe this may be the biggest Bass University live fish so far.
Of course, it happens with the big bass specialist. Come on now.
We'll take him. Yeah. Whew, you were right talking about picking up a spinnerbait. I want to invite you guys to look in on this spinnerbait color that I'm using. And it's a black spinnerbait. It's got black blades on it. The water here is tannic. You'll never guess, Ish, where I picked up this technique.
Where?
From Bass University Live.
JT Kenny?
JT Kenny gave an amazing seminar. He taught us about different color combinations of spinnerbaits and how he uses the dark colors in the tannic water to trigger strikes more consistently. And that fish did not care if it's a cold front. He didn't care that it's late in the day, it's windy.
No,
He
cared it was
wanted that
windy.
spinnerbait.
He liked the wind.
Yeah, he did like
The
that
wind is his friend.
Whew! Man, what a strike.
Once again, when you lose that feeling, you know it's time to quit.
Whew. I thought he was going to come up mudfish. He's too big and mean, you know? Well, he was just an angry Florida bass. Hungry.
Here's a good one from James No Bomb again. No Boom. When do you use a buzzing frog to change up presentation?
That's a good question, Ish. What is your philosophy on a buzz? We call it, for ease of conversation, we call those toads the buzz toads, and then we call frog a frog. That just kind of makes it easy to talk about them. When do you use which and why?
Well, the situation for using a buzz frog for me is when There's a little bit more ripple, a lot more open water, places that the fish are really, really active and wanting commotion and noise. And if you can get that commotion and that noise going with that buzz frog, sometimes it is way better. The one thing that I've seen is you get a little ripple on the water like you have right here. They won't eat a regular frog, but you pick up that buzz frog and, you know, they'll eat it. It happens a lot in conditions where, you know, you get wind and not a cold front scenario. Oh, that was a big fish.
That was fun. Maybe there's another one.
Oh,
There he
there it
is.
is. And
Not quite as big, but another one nonetheless.
you'll make me get out my
Oh, hey now. I got a 2-minute penalty.
2-minute penalty.
Thank you. Thank you, Slim. Another Florida. Stomping that spinnerbait. I might go spinnerbait fishing tomorrow.
You might have me buying a black spinnerbait to fish tomorrow. I ain't got one. I may have still one out of his boat.
I might have one or two.
Might have one or two. Cool.
For you guys that have, if you guys subscribe to Bass U TV, you got to go check it out. JT Kenny, just search JT Kenny, and you'll see all of his seminars. We recently visited him at his home, a little bit south of here, and we talked a lot about spinnerbaits. So you want to go check that out, guys.
I'll be checking that out tonight myself.
There's one fish from top of the Rava.
There he is.
Oh,
Pike, pickerel, pickerel.
starting to see some fish back up in here. Proceed with the question. We were interrupted. Sorry, Don.
Fish catch.
We interrupted with fish catch there.
What do you feel is your strongest fishing technique other than flipping or fogging?
Drop shot. Joking. The question is what do I feel is my strongest fishing technique other than flipping and frogging? Well, I don't really say that frogging and flipping is my strong suit. It's a technique that I like to do. I feel like I'm good at everything. I mean, I am an excellent drop shotter. I just prefer not to do it in, you know, tournament scenarios because I believe that day in and day out, you're not going to win tournaments on a drop shot. You know, if we go to smallmouth fisheries, yes, drop shot is definitely the only way to win a tournament. But it's not very often you see a guy, even guys like Aaron Martins, you know, win on a drop shot.
Right.
But I can fish a Senko. The biggest stringer I ever caught in the BASS tournament is on a Carolina rig,
Ah.
35 pounds, 12 ounces. And so I feel like I'm good at doing that too. I feel like I'm a good jig fisherman. You guys have seen me on, you know, Major League Fishing throwing a chatterbait, a swimming worm, a square bill. I feel like I'm good at everything. It's just, there's no really one strong suit that I'm better at. There's just techniques that I prefer, and because I feel like I can win. The majority of the money that I've made on tour has been flipping and frogging. And I do get burnt with those techniques at times just because I feel like it's the only way to win.
You heard it here first, guys. Ish is good at everything.
Yep.
But in all honesty, what he said is absolutely right, and that should be the goal of every angler. And this is, man, this is what I wish for everybody that watches Bass U TV or comes to one of our classes, is no matter the technique, whether you're looking at a drop shot, a frog, or flipping, I want you guys to have equal confidence in those techniques, that when you pick them up, you feel like you're going to get bites. You feel like you're capable of triggering strikes with those techniques. That should be your goal. That's my goal, and it's certainly my wish for you guys that are watching.
The way to do that, Pete, is
the way to become that is, you know, to become confident in those is number one, you know, we give a lot of instruction here at Bass University TV, but when you get your instruction, you want to get out there and you want to
Use it.
You want to use it. Jeff's pointing at me one technique at a time. That's a way a lot of us learn how to use. I remember I talked to Ish about this, and he mentioned this just recently. Is that's one of the best ways you can do it is take out a spinnerbait rod, go out just with that, get yourself confident in a spinnerbait. Take out a frog, get confident with a frog. A lot of guys feel like, you know, hey, we got to go launch the boat, take it out to a giant body, famous body of water to be able to fish or even learn anything. But one of my training tools over the years has been little ponds, little farm ponds close to the house. I can walk there. I can take a frog. I can walk around the pond in a couple hours. I can trigger some bites, develop my confidence. So it doesn't, you know, you can do that before work, after work, on your lunch break, and that's the way I learned how to do a lot of stuff. So don't think you gotta, you know, be out on the big water to learn stuff, but using one at a time, that's definitely a big key on developing confidence on different techniques. There's a lot of dogs. We have another dog spectating us up there
Lots
in
of
the
dogs.
sun porch.
We have lots of dog people. I'm a dog person.
I am too. I have a boxer dog. What kind do you
I
have?
have a silver lab.
That's right, a silver lab.
Bull
I have
rider.
to look that up. I've not seen it.
It's a lab that's just, it's silver in color. They have champagne colored ones that are actually kind of they're a lighter of a golden.
All right, guys. Hey, Chris Birch.
Chris Birch.
We'd like to know, do either of you guys trim up your flipping baits when they go through the vegetation?
The question is, do we trim our flipping baits to make them go through the vegetation easier? I never alter my baits because I'm trying to get the most action out of my bait. So I never trim my baits. I just might go to a smaller profile.
Oh,
Right there at the boat. And he took my tail.
Oh, we did take your tail.
I
I
like to use smaller profile baits. One of the baits, like a D-bomb. Go ahead, take the troll motor.
I got it.
If I'm using a D-bomb and I want something to go through a little better, I might use a baby D-bomb, and it'll slide through a whole lot better. But here's something, folks, and I'm gonna tell you this. I call it, if you feel it, you fish it. So right now I've been throwing, he's catching some on a spinnerbait, but I'm really feeling a swimming worm. So I'm grabbing my swimming worm rod. Your instincts are going to be the best tool that you have in your boat. If you feel like you need to fish something, you better listen to it, because most of the time your instincts are right. More times they're right than they're not right. So I feel like fishing a swimming worm right now. I just feel like it's going to be a good bait to throw. And so I am going to throw it.
I will say, if you're, you know, Ish has got his choice of baits, and so do I when it comes to pitching in the mats and the crawfighter and the D-bomb are excellent choices, and they don't have any appendages. So if you're flipping a bait that does have appendages on it, one way you can get it through the cover is to pull those side arms off, because they will hang up more, you know, so you can make your bait a little bit more of a smaller profile and slip through better. Something else I do a little bit of when I'm having difficulty in a heavy mat is I use some scent. I use some slime on those baits, and sometimes it can help me get through a little bit better. Man, this wind is just perfect. It's all protected in here. The water's black as night. It's just gin clear.
Got a good frog question from Morty.
Morty's got a frog question.
Since most frogs have
Oh.
white bellies,
Sorry.
do you think the color on the top of the frog actually comes into play?
Marty, that's an excellent question. Marty's question is, Morty, that's an excellent question. Morty's question is, most frogs have a white belly. Do I think the frog color on the top of the frog actually matters? Well, Morty, I think it matters, like I said, when I'm fishing on top of mats and I can see the frog. I don't like using a green frog in a green mat because that's how I dictate when to set the hook. I've actually had a white frog in this black clear tannic water where I watched the fish swim away with the frog, and he didn't even have the whole frog in his mouth until I saw the frog disappear. That's when I set the hook. So the frog color doesn't matter on top to the bass as much as it matters to the fish. And I don't like using a black frog on bright clear days because, and in clear water, because I don't think that they get too good of a look at it. That's why I use a white one. Just a little bit more transparency. So I hope that answers your question.
I'd like to see what you're using right now.
I'm using a swimming worm.
I want to have a look at that rig. Some people don't know what that is.
Ultra Vibe Speed Worm.
Ultra Vibe Speed Worm.
Magnum.
Magnum. It's got a fat body. It's got a bobber stop. What size weight you throwing
That's
on
a 3/16.
3/16. Very similar to the bait Ike won the Classic on down in New Orleans.
Yes.
At least played a role in his Classic.
Played a huge role. He was buzzing that thing, and fish were coming up and eating it, and when they miss it, he threw a Cinco back at him and he'd catch them.
Yep.
And he won the Classic. And Michael's going to retire from fishing before he won the Classic. And I remind him of that all the time, especially when he's catching them. I'm like, I think you're going to retire. Just go retire.
Yeah, quit giving us trouble, man. Retire
Exactly.
already.
Retire already.
The Ranger Mike has a question on braided line. Do you use the newer slick single strand braids with frogs or traditional multi-strand braids?
Ranger Mike has a good question about with braided line, do we use the new single strand slick braid or we do the multi-fiber braids? Well, Mike, I personally like an 8 carrier braid. I'm not big on a 4 carrier. I will occasionally use a 6 carrier, but Maxima 8X is the 8 carrier braid. And the reason is I believe that slick braid is almost too slick to where it actually digs in to itself when you hook a fish or you snag and makes for tough casting. And then with the 8 carrier, if you break one strand, you've only lost 1/8 of your strength. With a 4 or 6 carrier, can we get it?
Follow?
Little follower, wasn't that big. With a 4 carrier braid, you break a strand, you've lost 1/4 of your strength in your braid. So you just went from, if you were fishing even 80 pounds, you just went down to 60 pounds. So it's one of those things where I am not a big fan of, the single strand, but I'm a big fan of the 8 carrier braids just because of the strength and how it casts.
From T.A.
Hog Snatcher.
Will it be coming out with a popping frog for R2S?
TA Hog Snatcher had a great question about am I going to come out with a popping frog from river to sea? Well, we have one currently that has Tommy Biffle's face on it. And it's an excellent frog. Creating a new popping frog is really hard because it's got to work right. And it takes a long time. I'm working on it, but I couldn't tell you how long it's going to take to come out. I mean, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be never. If it's not going to be the right popping frog, then I'm not going to make it. I have dropped my punch bait into some places that I swore I'm gonna get my arm broke.
Oh,
Little one. Not the arm breaker. But finally, a punch bass. Oh, 2-minute penalty. Fish.
that's your second punch bass.
Fish release is it is my second one. That's right.
Now I notice, I can tell you go on point and you hesitate. Is that intentional?
Yes.
How long do you hesitate? And do you wait till he swims off, or what?
I make sure he's got it because a lot of times when that big weight goes through there, they'll just hit it as it's falling as a reaction bite.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have it, then you're not going to get a hook in them. But sometimes it takes multiple shakes for that fish to actually eat the bait because he'll hit it a couple of times. I mean, I've had it where 6, 7, 8 pounders who would normally grab the bait, they inhale it and blow it out so fast that if you set the hook on the initial hook set, you miss them. But if you get the bite and you check it, you got to remember these bass don't see baits very often.
That was a comedy of errors there. I was just in my back cast when you were in your hook set mode.
These baits don't see very often, so they'll hold on to a bait a lot longer in a mat than they will normally.
Hey guys, I just want to take a break. Questions are awesome. We're sending all kinds of great stuff. River Sea, missile baits. We're sending Bass University stuff to you guys. It's awesome having you guys here with us. We're enjoying it. It's a nice reprieve, right? We're in high pressure tournament situation, but we're off today. Me and Ish got to come out here and spend the afternoon with you guys. If you want to get in on all this prize action, guys, go over to bassu.tv and subscribe. If your instant message gets used live here with us, we're going to send you a prize. So go ahead and do that. Check it out. By the way, it's free right now. Try it for 10 days. Really think you're going to like it. We have content from guys like Ish, JT Kenny, who we've talked about a lot, the greatest anglers in the world, talking about the things that they're most confident in, and it's going to help you build confidence in your fishing, so you're able to go out with confidence, a variety of techniques, and consistently catch fish. That's our goal. That's our aim for you guys. That's what Bass University TV is all about. So if you're watching, you're not subscribed, go right now over and subscribe at bassu.tv. Send us your instant message. Let me know if you subscribed. We'll give you a shout out on the live program here. We're gonna keep going until about 5 o'clock.
You're after 5.
Oh, we're after 5 now? What
We're
time
gonna keep
we got?
going.
We're running out of juice. What time?
5:05.
5:05. All right, we're gonna go for just a few more minutes. We're gonna go for another 10 minutes, guys.
2 hours.
We're gonna. Ish
Dark.
wants to keep going until dark, but we'll 15 more minutes. We're gonna 5:20. We're cutting it off. So if you guys have any questions, come on, get them to us now. We're gonna be live here for about another 15 minutes. We're cutting it off at 5:20 Eastern time. Ish and I are gonna get back to our boats. We're gonna do a little bit of re-rigging, a little bit of fine tuning, getting ready for tomorrow's contest on the Harris chain. So, hey, thanks everybody that has subscribed, and thanks again for everybody that's participated in today's show. Especially the bass. Thank you for the giant Florida strain that
Yes.
participated just a few moments ago.
Yes.
You know, here's the deal. We got 15 minutes ish.
Okay.
Right? We've dealt with cold fronts every single time we've been live, and we're currently tied for the most bites caught during our live window. We need one more fish to dominate this series right now. I'm counting on us.
I'm counting on us too. I see it on that point.
I see it too.
But I've had enough bites to.
You up and running?
Yep.
Go ahead, shoot.
Got a good question from Eric Lytle.
Eric Lytle.
EL for short.
He wants to know, can you show him how to rig a D-bomb on a straight shank hook?
Yes, I can. Pete's got one tied up already.
Oh, I do, don't I?
Yes, you do. Standard Texas rig.
I'll show you then.
But see, Pete has put a challenge on me right now, so I'm hardcore. And I'm seeing these perfect mats to punch into.
Now I'm going to show you how I rig it. I don't know if Ish does anything different. He can listen. If he has anything to add, he's welcome to chime in. All right, this is a D-bomb. I heard that braid slipping through the eyes. I thought for sure you had them on there. I love that sound. I'm going to go in about a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more, off the head on the D-bomb. Okay. Now I'm going to thread it up on this hook. This is a VMC flipping hook. Now I'm coming up, and you can see it's got double barbs. It's built to handle the Schnell knot, which I have tied on here. Okay, and I've got my ounce weight, and I'm just going to thread that up over both barbs, and I'm going to get it up over the top of the second barb. So actually the eye of the hook is covered with plastic. That's my goal. It makes it a little bit more fishable. If the eye is exposed, it's going to want to kick that out to the side. So I actually cover the eye with plastic, and then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to pinch it up just a little bit, and I go through the center of the bait. Now the really cool thing about this bait is my hook point is only covered by just these thin pieces of plastic. So when a fish, if fish collapses on that, I mean, that hook point is going to come right out of there. So you got a great strike to catch ratio on that bait. I want the bait to be as straight as possible, with respect to the hook. And then I've got that big flipping hook prepared for some of these giant Florida bass. That's how I rig the D-bomb.
So Tyler Helm would like to know, what's the advantage to a straight shank hook versus a wide gap?
Oh man,
that.
Tyler Helm. I got to answer that first. Oh,
Got it.
oh,
In the boat!
in the boat.
In the boat!
He hit the Dean right.
In the boat!
Stayed in the boat,
Shoot,
man.
he scores.
That's number
Record
5.
holder, number 5 in the boat, 5 alive.
5. Don's wrestling with him. I don't know who's winning down there, but I think the fish is winning right now. Can't quite get a hold of it.
Tyler,
Yeah,
Tyler's
whoa, give it that fish. We're going to showcase that little guy.
Heck yeah.
That's our winner right there. That's number 5. We're going to take him.
Tyler, that right there is the answer to your question. Tyler's question is about straight shank versus offset hooks. Tyler, a straight shank hook has the best hookup ratio due to the fact that that hook point is not in line with the eye. Can you see it? And so when you go to hit that fish, that hook's always going to go. An offset hook actually has the second best hookup ratio, but an extra wide gap to me has the worst hookup ratio because I can slide an extra wide gap over my hand and never hook because you only have that much spacing between the eye of the hook and the gap of the hook. So that's why I use a straight shank hook, because most fish end up in the boat when flipping versus an offset or an extra wide gap.
Exactly. Let me spin around here. Yeah, that was slick. I had some bad experiences back, and I was telling Ish actually about this tournament down here in Florida where it's flipping, and this was years ago when we were using screw lock weights, and the straight shank technology wasn't there yet, and I lost on the last day of the event. I never forget it. I lost 10 bass flipping in the mats, and at that time, I didn't know about, the adjustment to straight shank and why it's so much better. And had I known then, I mean, my catch ratio would have been way up. But if you're ever having a problem with an offset shank worm hook, whether you're punching mats or whether you're just Texas rigging, or even if you're just Carolina rigging, if you're ever having trouble with losing fish on that bent shank, go to the straight shank. It'll solve that problem. It'll increase your strike to catch ratio.
And I will tell you that the straight shank hook does not keep the bait as straight all the time. You are going to have to continue make adjustments to your bait. But for me, when money's on the line, I'd rather make the adjustment.
You learn.
And putting that fish in the boat versus not making that adjustment and missing that fish or losing that fish. Shoot, I got 9 minutes. I can still catch one more.
I actually got a question.
Jeff, the producer, has a question for us.
Well, I wanted to talk about hook set.
Yep.
Ish, I seem to remember like a couple of the guys were talking about jig fishing and talking about creature bait, and they were talking about reeling 3 times hard before you set it. And you crank. Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's different hook sets for different baits. You know, for me, if I'm in contact with my jig, I'm slacklining, setting the hook. When I'm punching, it's kind of a real hard pressure set. I'm reeling and pulling hard at the same time to penetrate that hook. Worm fishing is kind of the same thing. Cinco fishing, I just start winding, and usually you just bury that hook into that fish that way. Drop shotting, pressure set. Spinnerbait, hard hook set. Chatterbait, winding hook set. I mean, each one is different, and you had to have the right rod to make that right hook set. Having the right equipment is so huge when it comes to fishing. I tell people all the time, you don't try to hammer a nail with a screwdriver.
Jeff does sometimes.
Jeff does sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why he asked that
So-
question.
So when you're flipping, you want to use a flipping stick. When you're cranking, you want to use a cranking rod. When you're throwing a top water, you want to use a top water rod. I mean, you got to have the right equipment to do the right job, or else you're going to miss, lose, or not even get the bite at all from fish. And so that's hugely, hugely important. And I do want to make note, I beat JT Kinney's record on his Florida.
That's right. And his home state.
Yep.
And also in a cold front. So
Also in a cold
he
front.
can't- He might say that his cold front's more severe than this one, but
But it's on his home
not
water.
sure.
I've never been to this lake before.
that's true.
And that's what, you know, a lot of people ask that question all the time is what do you do on a lake that you've never been to before? You fish the stuff that you like to fish because you know the scenario and you know what you're looking for. When I saw this point and Pete said I had 15 minutes, I'm like, he's living right there
Yep.
for me to break the record. So I'm gonna go catch him
You're on
off of that point. I kicked the trolling
find
motor
Need to find another challenge for you real quick.
on high. No,
Two.
we got 6. You said 520.
520. Ooh.
Here's one for both of you. We can wrap up in 5 minutes. From Luke Garcia.
Luke Garcia.
Personally, to each of you, what is the hardest thing about being a pro angler now opposed to back when you first began?
Wow, that's a cool question. What is the hardest thing about being a pro angler now than when we first got started? I guess the hardest thing is the entry fees are now 5 times what they were, or at least they used to be.
I guess for me, the hardest thing is I didn't have Bass University TV like
Right.
these young guys have now. I mean, once again, there's so much information, and now with the Bass U Live that we have going, you can ask the questions of techniques that you don't know very well. And if I would have had that, you know, I was fortunate enough in my early career to be able to sit down with dinner with Denny Brower, and I rambled off 800 million questions to him, and he answered one question, which was, do I peg or not peg? And he told me that he doesn't peg unless he has to. And I remember taking that. In these situations, you have to peg when you're punching, but when I fish a Texas rig worm, or I'm just flipping docks or flipping brush, I don't peg my weight. So I think that's the hardest thing now is that I got to compete with these kids that have all the information in the world to them when I didn't have that when I first started.
Yeah, that's a huge point. You know, the internet has brought, you know, shed light on a lot of things, and you're seeing the learning curve get smaller and smaller and smaller. We used to have to experience it, you know, and there's still a lot of that. You know, you got to get out there and you got to experience the cold fronts. You got to experience muddying water situations and the clearing water situations and all those kinds of things. But by, you know, what's going on, you know, we're down here at the Bassmaster Live, where, you know, you're able to see the guys make the adjustments, go through the process, fail and succeed. You know, it's really it really is shortening the learning curve, and the competition is catching up. Right, it used to be a big disparagement between the top guys and the middle guys and the bottom guys. Now it seems like
Everybody's equal.
Everybody's pretty even, man. You got to bring your A game to get it done out here on tour right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the days of when me and Dean and one other guy was the only guys throwing a frog in a tournament.
Right.
You know, and now everybody has a frog tied on.
I remember when the drop shot was new.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that learning curve is, you know, making the adjustments with a square bill, making the adjustments with a spinner bait, even old school lures. You know, all the different jigs that are out there is there's so much information available now that, yeah, some of it can be overwhelming, but at the same time, if you don't know a technique, you know, it's not very often, besides at sport shows, a guy can sit there and ask me about frog fishing, you know, but Bass U Live just brought that to him.
And you're asking Ish live while he's doing it, and see the technique, you know, watching.
Right.
Like I'll be honest, I'm a student of this game, and I don't know if you noticed it, but I got my eye on Ish the whole time. I'm watching him flip. I'm watching, you know, what he's doing. You know, is it different from what I'm doing? You know, why is he, you know, choosing those particular targets, you know? And that's the kind of stuff that I try to pick up on to see if I can, you know, constantly, you know, grow my game. Never stop learning is our motto, and
Yep.
and that's what I think that's what makes this sport awesome, is because it's ever changing. We're learning new and better techniques all the time, and we're trying to bring those to you, and we're going to keep doing it.
So we'll wrap this up with a little humor
Sure.
from Tom. You ditch your Hydra wave because Biggie Smalls draws the fish in better?
No, I didn't ditch my Hydra Wave at all. Tom asked if I ditched my Hydra Wave because Biggie Smalls is calling him over.
I see your speakers in the boat here.
Biggie
You're
always
rigged.
calls them in, but man, my Hydra Wave is key. Don't worry, I might be fishing this first event without one, but I've got my girlfriend Hillary shipping me my Hydra Wave as we speak, and so it'll be here. Actually, matter of fact, it might even show up today.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw your Rangers all rigged out with
Oh, I got it.
speakers. I'm like, man, I want to be fishing in that boat when it's rocking.
Shoot, we play music all the time, but I didn't think you'd let me play music.
5:19, we're coming up on the last cast.
I still hold
This
the
might be
record. That's all
mine.
I care about. I own the record.
It's one.
I could have blown the record out, but
Yeah, with that frog, that,
oh, the frog fish and
Frog
the
fish.
fish,
Woo.
flip fish.
do I have another cast? Oh, I got 8 seconds to get a cast in. Oh, thought I was in.
Nope.
Well.
Still hold the record. I hold the record. I hold the record.
Hey, I want to thank Ish Monroe for being with us. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the afternoon, spending it with us. It's been a treat. We're rooming together this week, so it's a lot of fun. Shout out to Don Slimmer, who's our personal chef this
Two
week.
records, biggest and most.
Biggest and most. Folks.
That's what fishing's about, biggest and most.
Hey, I want to thank all you guys for giving us your questions. We're going to be sending you guys all some cool stuff from River to Sea, from Missile Baits, and from Bass University. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for all you guys that have subscribed during the show. And if you still haven't done it, guys, we've got a lot of great stuff coming. We just filmed a lot of our great seminars this year with Gerald Swindle down in Alabama. We have Brian Thrift we captured this year, Edwin Evers, just some of the highlights. of what you're going to see on Bass University TV coming. And we're going to be live. We're going to be live all year with you guys. Let us know where you want to see us be live, and we're going to be there. We're going to